to the No Fear Sock Knitting class online. My name is Denise, also known as EarthtonesGirl, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to change and add a new color or new strand of yarn when you are knitting socks. I am so excited for this class. During the full body or the main classes for the No Fear Sock Knitting class, I talked about doing this class as an extra. So here it is, and I'm so excited to share this information with you today. We are going to cover, as always, I'm checking my notes, we are going to be covering a couple of different topics today. One, changing color in ribbing, counting your rounds in color, which is really important because it's done a little bit differently than just counting regular rounds, knitting in your ends as you go. That is, I think, the biggest frustration or deterrent from doing scrappy socks for a lot of people is what to do with all of those ends. And a lot of people know how to change color and start knitting with a new color to keep going, but to have to then go back and weave in all of those ends at the end is so daunting. And especially if you've got really little tiny bits and pieces left over of yarn that you really do want to use, but you know you're only going to maybe get 2 or 3 rounds out of it and then have to change again. So it can be really daunting for people changing color. So I'm going to teach you how to knit in the new yarn as you go. So when you are finished, all you have to do is turn your sock inside out and clip off all the ends and you're done. All the work will already be done for you or done by you as you're going. We're also going to cover knitting a jogless color change or a jogless jog. When you are changing from one color to the other, you're going when you're changing from one color to the other, you get a jog, which is one color starts here, and when you come around to the end of the round, the next color is here. The reason that happens is knitting in the round is not a complete circle. You're not going from the beginning and then coming around and meeting the same point. It is a spiral. So knitting in the round, you are basically knitting a spiral. So when you come around with the new color, it bumps up to the row above. So there is a way to make the 2 rows go like this and meet seamlessly in the middle so you don't get that jog or that distinct separation in the color. And I'm going to be showing you how to do that so that you can accomplish 2 things at once by knitting your ends in as you go and doing the jog at the same time. I'm just going to give you a minute to let that sink in because it's magic. Oh my gosh, wait until you see that. Then we're going to cover changing to a new color so that you have contrasting cuffs, heels, and toes, all encompassed with what we're doing, but distinctly how to do it with a heel flap and gusset, and also when you are working a short row. Now, these are socks that I'm currently working on. I wanted to work on these for this tutorial. This is based on my No Fear. This is my No Fear Shorty sock pattern. This is the original pattern. I've just now changed colors. It's the heel flap and gusset right here. This one, I've substituted a short row heel in my pattern. So you will knit your cuff, you knit your 15 rounds on the cuff, 15 rounds on the leg, and instead of starting the heel flap, you jump right in and start doing the short row. And this particular short row heel that I used is the Fish Lips Kiss heel. I cannot go into detail and actually teach that heel because it is a copyrighted pattern. The pattern belongs to Socks Therapist. Her name is Patty Joy. So I cannot teach you the actual details of knitting the short row heel, and that's not what this video is anyway. But I will tell you, I will be explaining how to start the heel to change the color and then how to end, and in so doing how to weave in your ends. So again, your heel, the color change in your heel is all knitted in as you're going along. So that is what I will be covering. Again, the pattern that I'm using is I'm sorry, I just bumped my camera. The pattern that I'm using is my No Fear Shorty sock pattern that is available for purchase on Ravelry. For those of you not on Ravelry, and because this video is being recorded on April 10th, 2020, a year from now, if any of you are watching, just to let you know what is currently happening in the world, we are in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are a lot of delays in a few things that I wanted to accomplish with my podcast and with my business. One of which is the delay in setting up my Shopify account. It will be happening, but there is a delay. So if you are not on Ravelry and have wanted to join in on the class and wanted to purchase the pattern, I've come up with a temporary solution. You can send me an email. Let me know that you would like to purchase the pattern. I will send you a PayPal invoice and then email the pattern to you. Email you a PDF of the pattern once the payment goes through on PayPal. So that is how I'm going to circumvent the situation with my online shop. So that should take care of that. But we are, again, this is the pattern that we're using. And so color change for heel flap and gusset, how to do, which also includes contrasting cuffs, heels, and toes, and also what to do when you start working your toe. When you change again to do the toe decreases. So just one little change there. So yeah, that is what we're covering in this class. I'm sorry if that seemed a little not so smooth, but that is what we're going to cover today. I am so excited to bring this information to you. As always, please leave your questions and comments down below. Let me know if anything was unclear, and I will try to answer your questions for you as best I can. So let's stop talking and let's get right into the tutorials. I will see you in just 1 second. I have to interrupt myself for just a moment. Before we get to the tutorial, I've decided to break up these videos or to break this up into smaller videos. Going over my notes and everything that I want to show you, I think it's going to be a little bit too much for one video. And I want these extra classes that I'm doing to be a little bit more precise in terms of the actual instruction and content in each video. So this particular one, I'm still going to cover everything I just talked about, but for this particular video, like I said, I'm going to break them up. So this one is going to be changing color in the ribbing. So we're still going to cover the knit in as you go and everything else that I said, but I'm going to break it up. So this particular one is going to be changing color in the ribbing and then going from the ribbing to start transitioning from the ribbing into the leg of the sock. So I haven't quite figured out yet how I'm going to label these. It will probably be changing colors, colon, and then ribbing, and then changing colors, heels, and I want to break it up to between heel flap and gusset and also short row heel. That way not everything is in one video. I think it would be a lot easier for all of you to process. It will also be a lot easier to film and edit and upload. Much, much quicker, especially if I'm doing shorter videos. So I just wanted to come on and say that. So this video, again, how to change color and add new colors in when working the ribbing on your sock. And I will be showing you 2 different methods for doing that: changing color within the ribbing and then changing color once you've completed the ribbing. And also, I didn't say this before also, I do say it in the actual tutorial, but I just want to say it here. I'm only going to be using the 2 circular method for this. I'm not demonstrating this on 2 circ and magic loop. All of these techniques can be applied no matter what sock knitting method you're using, whether you're doing 2 circulars or magic loop or double points or a 9-inch circular. It does not matter. So again, for the sake of time and being a little bit more concise in the video, I'm just using my go-to method. Everything that I say applies to all of the other techniques. I just think this format is going to be a little bit easier for you all to follow and me to produce. My dear friend Paige, hi Paige, if you're watching, suggested doing it this way, and I think it's actually a really great idea. I think it's going to be a lot more helpful for you all. So again, enough talking. Here is the tutorial, changing color with your ribbing. Thanks everybody. I'll see you in just 1 second. Okay, my friends, here we go. So for this tutorial, I am going to be using my go-to method, which is 2 circular needles. Just push that up so you can see. I'm going to be using my 2 circular needles. That does not matter with your with any of these techniques. They can be applied no matter what sock knitting method you are using. 2 circulars, magic loop, double points, 9-inch circulars. 9-inch circular. It does not matter. So for the sake of time and purpose, I'm just picking one method and I'm going with that to show you. Again, it applies across the board. So let's start with changing color in your ribbing. I'm going to show you 2 different things here. One, with this, I'm going to show you how to change color in the middle of your ribbing. Now the ribbing in the No Fear Shorty sock pattern is 15 rounds. So let's say you wanted to change color halfway through that, okay? Whether it's after 5 rounds, after 10 rounds, it does not matter, but you wanted to change color and have 2 colors in your ribbing. I'm going to show you how to do that here. And here I'm going to show you if you did the full length of the ribbing. And again, we're using the No Fear Shorty socks pattern, but this applies to any sock pattern that you can make little changes and tweaks to on your own. So this is a full cuff. This is the full 15 rounds. And now what? You want to change to the new color? How do you do that? Okay. And you're doing them different. With each method is a little bit different. So I'm going to put this to the side for now. And we are going to work with this where we're changing color in the ribbing. Now, why would you even want to do that, and why would that be a concern? Why is there a right or wrong way to do that? So here is a stripy sock. Now, this particular yarn is self-striping, so I'm not changing any colors. This is the yarn itself and the way it's been dyed. However, when you are knitting and there is a change in the color, there is a little thing called a blip. That's what I've called it, that starts to happen. And that blip happens, of course, now I can't find it, right here. Here we go. So here is the little blip that I'm talking about. When you change color and you go from the knit stitch is even, you don't see any jog in the knit stitch. When you are changing color, you do see a little jog or a little blip in the yarn in the purl stitches. Is that a big deal? Absolutely not. Is it something that just bugs me? Yes. And there is a way, and it may bug some of you. You may want it to look, now here it is side by side. You may want it to look, not side by side, but you want it to look a little bit cleaner. Now, if you look further down, I'm going to open this up for you. Ha! There is no jog in the color down here. Can you see what I've done? I've inserted a row of plain knit stitches in my ribbing. I'll pause and let you soak that in. So here, what I've done is I've just continued all the way around, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2. When I want to change the color, what I'm going to do is just knit one solid round where the color changes, or in this case, adding in the new ball. And I'm going to show you how to do that right now. Now, you want to definitely establish the ribbing before you do that. You may not want to do that right away in the very beginning because you're going to get a little bit of a flare. Can you do it? Yes, but you really have to be able to control, be able to control your ribbing and have the ribbing really come in and draw in the way ribbing is supposed to. If your ribbing is flaring or feels a little bit loose, I would master getting that ribbing a little more under control before trying this technique, but you can absolutely do it. So now here I am. I've done, now this is, let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 rounds in the first color. So in this really beautiful sort of copper color. And I am now ready to insert this tan color. So I'm going to, and this changeover technique is going to apply throughout. I'm going to be demonstrating this multiple times throughout this video, but this is basically how you're going to weave your ends in as well as change color as you're going along. So I'm just going to get myself into position. I'm finished with this color right now. I'm done. So I'm going to just break this off very carefully. I'm going to move that ball out of the way, and I'm ready to start with this ball. So here is my tail. You really don't need much longer of a tail. You probably could even make the tail as short as maybe to here. If you really do have that one little scrap that you really want to include and you don't have a lot of tail, you can work with something even this short. It's really okay. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do this very carefully. Again, this can be applied to any technique. It does not matter. I'm going to bring that tail over the top of the yarn. So it is over the top of the needles. It's coming from here. This is where I just ended. I finished, this was my last stitch. I'm going to bring that up and over the top. Now, the way I'm demonstrating this, I'm going to be using two hands to do this. And I will explain. So you're going to have to figure out how to hold your yarn to make it comfortable for you. So what I'm doing, and I'll talk about that a little bit more, because again, I'm going to be showing this to you more than once. So I'm going to bring my yarn over the top. I'm going to hold this in my hands like this. And now I am ready to start. Now, if I were knitting continental, I would just grab this yarn and start knitting. I'm going to insert my needle as if to knit. I'm just knitting. There's no knitting, insert as if to knit, as if to purl. None of that applies here. I'm going to gather my new color, pull off a little bit of a length, gather my new color, and I'm going to make a little loop. Just drape it over my finger. I'm going to take this little loop and I'm going to put it right over the needle like this. I am now holding both strands. So what I've done, just like a little lasso, I have lassoed my needle and I'm holding on to both strands. My yarn, the new yarn, the old yarn, forgive me, okay, is right here, is coming over the top. So now let me go back out and do this again. What you're basically doing is catching this yarn over and under the new yarn. So again, I'm going to go in, I'm going under the old yarn. I am taking my new yarn, lassoing that needle. So I'm now, as you can see, the new yarn is under the old yarn, and I'm going to just come through for that first stitch. Okay, now I'm going to go in. Now look at where the yarn is. Do you see that the yarn is now, I'm going to drop my tail. I'm only interested now in the working end of the yarn, so I'm just inching. And you all know, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I always get a little clumsy looking through the camera and all of that. So now look at the position I'm in. Okay, the old yarn is over the new yarn. The new yarn is here. When I knit into this stitch here, I'm going to trap the old yarn in the new stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. And there we go. Now it's right there, and it doesn't look like it's caught, but it is. Now I'm going to, that tail is hanging out of the way. For the next stitch, I'm just going to knit. And I'm knitting all of these stitches going across. This is how, by knitting one solid round in the new color, I will avoid that blip that will show up on the purl stitches in the ribbing. Okay, you're all with me? So now I've gone under the old yarn. Now I'm going to bring the old yarn, I'm going to put my needle under the old yarn, wrap around, and knit. Do you see where it is? It's right here over the new yarn. When I knit the next stitch, I have now trapped it, and that's what's starting to happen now on the wrong side. Okay, I'm going to go in. So basically it's under, knit, over, knit, under and knit, over and knit. And I'm going to talk you through that one more time. I'm inserting my yarn and bringing my needle under the old yarn. and I'm going to knit. I'm going to pretend it's not there, and I'm just going to knit with my new yarn. Okay, now when I go into the next stitch, that old yarn is over my yarn, and I'm going to over the new, and I'm just going to knit. And again, what happens on the back is this. You are trapping the old yarn, which is right here. Let me get another needle to show you. You're trapping the old yarn, which is this right here, okay? And that is getting trapped in the new yarn, in the new stitches. Okay, oops, sorry, I went off camera. That is getting trapped in the new yarn, in those stitches right here. So it's being held in place by these new stitches I'm creating. Now, how many times should you do that? For the sake of demonstration, I just did it way more times than you need to. I usually only go across maybe 5. So I will trap over, under about 5 or 6 times, drop the old yarn. I don't care about that. I usually pull it through. Whoops, where'd it go? Can't find it. Okay. Usually pull it through my knitting, so it's through the tube, through my ribbing, so it's out of my way. And now I'm going to continue knitting. I'm not working in a rib. I'm going to continue knitting all the way to the other end. Okay, and what that does, creates, there are my knit stitches. Can you see those in there? So there's a knit, there's a knit, there's a knit. You now have those knit stitches sitting on top of the purls, and there is no blip or no distinction in the color. It looks smooth. So now I'm going to show you when I get down to the other end. And now I am working across the second half of my sock, same way we've been doing throughout this class all along. And here is the tail of the new yarn. Now this has to be woven in, okay? So I'm going to show you what to do. When I get to about here, I'm going to show you how to weave the tail in from the new ball, okay? So again, I've just been knitting around. That's all I've been doing, no ribbing, just knitting every single stitch, okay? This is how we're going to eliminate that little blip in the ribbing and change color in ribbing. So I'm just going to continue working across. I know my thumb is in the way. You guys remember that from before. Just stay with me. Okay. And I'm going to come across. Now I want to just count how many stitches. So that's about 6. I've got 6 stitches left. All right. Before the end of the round. How do I know I'm at the end of the round? Because my tail from the original tail is hanging out right here waiting for me. Okay. When my working yarn and my tail are in the same place, I know I've completed the round. So now let's weave in the tail from the new yarn. What I'm going to do is bring this tail between the needles. I'll do that again because I know people are going to want to see that again. So here are my needles. Here is my tail. I'm going to bring the tail. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way as much as I can between the 2 needles, and that is where it is now sitting. So here's where I started the new color. Here's my tail. I am going to put my finger in under that tail. I'm going to hold it with my thumb. I don't want it flopping around. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did before. I'm going to put my needle in, and it goes under. Now, you are working now with the same color because you are weaving in your tail with your working yarn. So they are going to be the same color. So I'm going to knit that stitch, go into the next. Now you see where the yarn is? Okay, I'm holding it in place. I've got it trapped in place here. I'm still holding it with my thumb. Now I'm going over it. And now I'm putting my needle in and going under the tail, knitting. Now I'm going in again, but now my yarn is coming over the tail. And I'm going under, knitting my stitch. And here's my last stitch, and I'm going over. Now, does it matter what you end with? No, it does not. Does it matter if you're working under or over the yarn on that last stitch? No, it does not. If you start here, you're going to end over. If you start here, you might end under. It does not matter what you end with. So now let's have a look and see what's going on. I am going to pull this needle out of place because I'm finished with this round. But look at this big, giant, sloppy mess that's going on here. Can you all see that? So here's my old tail. Ta-da. Let's pull that out. Here is the tail from the new ball. Now watch what happens when I gently pull them. I've pulled one. I'm going to go in. It doesn't matter which one you pull first. I'm going to go in and I'm going to pull the other. Ta-da! And look at that. I'm going to give the working yarn, just snug that stitch up, and look at that, you guys. Voila! There is absolutely, positively no blips in your yarn, okay? It is tight. Your seam has been, there's no gap in the knitting. There's no ladder. Everything has been closed up. You do not want to, and I'm going to show you this again. You don't, or not again, I'm going to show you. If you pull too hard, look at what happens. You can see that that's too tight. And if you pull on this end, now usually again, as I said, we would not have knit this far across. I knit that far across for demonstration purpose. But if I pulled, look at how tight that there's no flexibility in those stitches at all, okay? What you want to do now, if you do pull too hard, just stretch it back out. All right, stretch it back out and then let it spring back into place and you're fine. All right, so I just undid that little extra pull. Now, this yarn is hanging out here. You can leave it there. It's not a problem. What I usually do, I go in, look at the wrong side. There it is. Here it is. And I just give it a little pull. Just pull that out and tuck it in. And I reach through and I pull all of these ends down and out of my way. Whoops, where's my working yarn? Where'd it go? Here it is. I pulled that down in too. Sorry, guys. Okay, so my working yarn is here. I'm going to keep my working yarn here out of the way. I'm going to tuck all of my ends down into my ribbing. And I'm going to continue knitting. Now, that is how you change color in ribbing when you do not want the little blip. So now what? What you're going to do now is continue with your ribbing. Okay, just continue knitting. You don't have to worry about the jog in the ribbing. Okay, the basic nature of the ribbing, you're not going to see the jog. So you can just go right on ahead and continue knitting. And now I'm working, or continue in your ribbing. I'm just going to go back to ribbing. Oop. Bear with me a second. Okay. Let's do a couple more so you can see it. And there you go, guys. There is no jog. There is no blip. And your change from one color to the other is smooth and seamless. Now let's see that on a finished sock. And here's what it looks like. There it is, guys. No jogs, no seams, no blips. I'm bringing this all the way around for you to see. And there you go. That is where I wove in my ends, right in here. There you go. Look at that. So that is how you change color. And now you would continue working your color, working with the new color in the ribbing until you are finished. So for here, I did the same thing. I did, what did I do? I think this was like 8 or 9 stitches and then finish the ribbing. So this, let's count it actually. Hold on. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait. I'm counting off camera. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I stopped and I started with my new color. And then this is right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is, sorry, I miscounted. This is 10 and then another 5. That gives you your 15. And then I just continued for 5 more. Okay. And then I did 10. So in the leg of the sock now, there's 5. And then there's 10, there's my 15. Again, if you're changing the pattern a little bit and you want the leg to be longer, just continue knitting. That's totally fine if you want a longer leg on your sock. But that is how you change color in ribbing. There you go. Now, let's put this to the side and just let me show you that again. Here you go. Here we go. So now here's a full cuff, and we're going to do the same thing again. I'm going to show you that one more time. So I'm going to, whoops, let's do this first. I'm going to break my yarn. I'm finished with this color. All right, so my gray is off on the side. Here is my tail, ready to go. So I'm going to get my needles into place. Okay, I'm going to, now I take no credit for this. Let me say this right now. I do not take any credit for this technique. I learned this from the Cozy Knitter. I'm not sure where she learned it from or if she created this, but I learned it from Christina, who is the Cozy Knitter. And she has a tutorial online as well with how to do this. What Christina does in her tutorial, she has both colors, the old and the new, let's do this, coming off of the same finger because she is knitting them, there we go. So when she starts to knit, she's going in here and she is knitting them continental. So she pulls one color and then the other and one over. She's still doing the over, under, but she's doing it with the yarn, both yarns coming from one hand. My finger just does not work that way. I don't know how to do that. I've tried and I can't get this finger to work properly. It just won't do it. So if doing it with two hands is not making sense to you, please go and check out her tutorial. I will link it in the description box for you down below so that you can see how to do it with both yarns coming from the same hand, okay? What I'm teaching may just not work for some people, and I am well aware of that. So I am more than happy to have you go and search elsewhere for a tutorial that does work for you. So again, here is my tail. I'm bringing that over. I'm going to hold, I can hold one strand in this hand. I'm just going to anchor this a little bit on my pinky. It's a really short end, but I just need to anchor it a little bit more. Okay, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to do the same thing I just did. So I am under, I've brought my needle under. Here is my loop. I'm going to lasso my needle. And I'm just going to start knitting. Now, dropping my tail, grabbing my, dropping my tail, grabbing my working yarn. Hold on, I'm going to do this off camera. There you go. And I'm going to start the same thing again. So I am now under and knit through. And then I'm going to come over and knit. Under, knit. It's already over and knit. I've done that. Okay, let's do it one more time. Over and knit. I'll do it once more. And knit. I'm now going to, and there it is. It's been woven in, and again, you're weaving in the dark color on the dark, so that's why it's hard to see, but it is right there. It's been woven in. I'm going to drop this tail, tuck it down inside, again, just to keep it out of my way. Pull this out of the way. Hold on. There we go. And now I'm just going to happily knit away with the new color. Okay? I'm finished with my ribbing. And I'm just going to knit all the way around. All right. Just knit happily along. La, 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 la. Nobody wants to see this, or maybe you do. So again, this strand here, this first stitch is going to feel a little bit sloppy. But as you can see, once you've woven this tail in on this side and you give the little tug, everything smooths itself out and tucks itself in. Okay. So I will show you the whole thing. You know what? Maybe I'll just do this one in real time for you because that has always been helpful. And many of you have said that that's very helpful for you. So I'm just going to knit across. Okay, here we go. Knit across. Okay. I don't know if you can hear my children in the background. They are entertaining themselves. I believe they're making Play-Doh right now. My daughter is old enough that she can manage to do that. So now I'm finished on that side. I'm just going to do my normal turn, get that tail out of my way. Okay, get my needles in place. Actually, oh, there it is. That was the tail I needed. So let's pull that back out. Okay. All right, tuck that over, find my other end. And I know somebody, you know what? Let me not address that now because I think that would just be confusing. I'll save that for another class. So I'm just going to continue knitting. I'm just knitting along. I'm finished my cuff and I'm working on my leg now. And I'm working across. Hold on. Looking through the camera, which always slows me down. So you guys, this may seem really crazy. For some of you, it may click right away and you're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. That's great. I totally get it. Sorry, my son is yelling. I apologize. And for the others of you, you may have to watch it more than once, more than twice, more than maybe 10 times in order to get it. And again, that is all absolutely fine. Totally fine. There is no race. Take your time, study it. Okay. It's one thing to watch this on a video. It's another thing to have me right in front of you. Unfortunately, that is not an option. So I'm trying to do this as clearly as I possibly can. So again, I'm going to bring my tail between the needles. I'm trying to keep my hand out of the way. Let's do that again. So here is my tail now from here. I'm going to bring that between the needles. Okay, I'm going to put my finger in place, hold the tail, and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm going to go under and then over. And the under and over is under the tail, under and knit. Then I'm bringing my yarn over the tail and knitting. Under, knit, over, knit, under, knit, and I'm ending this time with an over. Do I ever count it? Absolutely not. I never ever do. I really, really don't count. So here it is. You can pull this out of the way, or whichever needle you're working on. I just spread it apart a little bit, pull the tail, give that a little tug, find your other tail, give that one a little tug, snug everything up, and you're ready to continue. Okay, and that is basically, you guys, how you change color in your knitting. I'm going to pull the little tail, which is now on the right side. I'm going to pull that to the wrong side. Just give that a little pull, tuck it in, and there you go. Now let me show you that on a sock. Give me 1 second. Let me grab that for you. Okay. Now, this is what this sock is going to look like in a little bit. Okay, but I'm using this one also for demonstration. I wanted to get this to a point where I can show you how to do the toe. I do need to knit a little bit more, but I wanted to save this particular sock to demo the toe for you. So here you go. Here's what that looks like. Let's turn that around. And there you go. Now, this stitch looks a little enlarged. That stitch looks enlarged. It looks longer. It almost looks like a slip stitch. When you wash this, that will go away. That is not a problem. That is exactly how it is supposed to look. The reason it looks like that is you have a slight exaggeration from going under or over, under or over. Again, it will wash out, but trust me, I've done this before. I have done this before. It does completely changing your color. Actually, I will show you here. Yep. So changing the color here, you can't even see it. Okay. Here you go. Completely undetectable. You cannot see it. Once the sock is washed, it disappears. Those little, what look like slip stitches, they're not slips. It's just that the yarn is running underneath. So there's a tiny little bit of bulk pushing that stitch forward. That's why you're getting that, what looks like a slip stitch. It's just a tiny bit of bulk underneath. Once you've washed your sock, it disappears. It just goes right in. You don't have to block your socks. you're just a simple regular laundering, washing of your sock, and it goes right away. So there you go. So now next up is going to be, let me grab my little outline here. Next up is going to be, I'm going to show you how to do that knitting in one more time. Okay, because I really do think you need to see it. You're going to see it multiple times throughout the video. So next up, we're going to count our rows, count our rounds in the ribbing, and I'm going to demo that knitting the stitches in one more time for you. So now we are going to talk about counting your rounds and knowing when to change color. Now, when you are working on your sock, you get to decide, with Scrappy Socks, you get to decide how many rounds you want that block of color to be. In this case, between the cuff and the leg of the sock is 30 rounds all together, 15 on the cuff, 15 on the leg. So what I decided to do with this demonstration piece is break it up into tens. So I did 10 of one color, 10 of another color, which included 5 in the ribbing and 5 of just the stockinette, which is also part of the leg, and then another 10 in the third color. So that way I have 3 different colors spread out over 30 rounds. You can decide. You can do as we did with the other sock, which is here. You can do the entire cuff in one color and then start changing your colors as you go. Okay, the choice is yours. So I wanted to show you now when you're counting with color changes like this, normally in your pattern it will tell you knit 10 rounds and then do the next thing, whether that's a textured pattern or you're starting your heel or whatever it is. In color, and usually with other patterns, it says knit the 10 rounds. That means 10 completed rounds are done, are knit. You do not count the row of stitches or the line of stitches on the needles. That is not counted. However, in color work, you do, well, for Scrappy Socks, if you're counting your rounds and you want a specific number, then you do count the row of stitches on the needles because, and as you can see here, I'm going to use the end of the needle to count. As you can see here, here's the end of one color, the end of my sort of charcoal gray, and here is where this peach color starts. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This stitch under, this row of stitches under the needle is the 9th round. This row of stitches that are on the needle will be number 10. Because when you start knitting, and I'm going to show you right here for a moment just what happens, okay? When you start knitting with the new color, and right now I'm not showing you, I'm not demonstrating how to weave in or anything. I just want you to see what happens with the row of stitches underneath. So I'm just joining in a new color just for the sake of showing you. Okay, so once you start knitting with the new color, this is what happens. Let me just go a couple of stitches in so you can see what I want to show you here. Okay, there you go. The row of stitches, this is perfect actually, the row of stitches sitting on the needle now becomes the next round of completed stitches. So when you go back and count again, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So what was the 10th row, which was 9 rows here, the 10th row was still sitting on the needles. Once you change the color, there are your total number of rounds that you wanted in that specific color. Does that make sense to everyone? So in the case of Scrappy Socks or changing colors, unless you're doing something specific like Fair Isle or mittens, that's a whole other conversation. But for Scrappy Socks and changing yarn, if you want a specific number of rounds of one color, or the specific block of color or number of rounds of one color, you definitely count the row of stitches that are sitting on the needles. Okay, guys? There you go. Now, I'm going to, so that is how you count, that is how you count how many rounds you have. The choice is yours. You can decide. I had a very interesting question. I'm just going to put that to the side for a moment. And now I'm going to bring this over. So now when you've got something like this, it's very distinct. where you're oops. Look at that. My needle just pulled right out, you guys. It doesn't matter. I'll go back and fix it later. I know some of you are gasping for air right now. This looks very, very scary, but it's not. I can go back and fix it. It's all okay. What I was saying is these are very distinct color changes here. So it's very easy to see what you're doing. I want to show you changing color when it's much more subtle. So I'm going to put this to the side. Yes, I will fix that. It's all okay. It's okay. Everybody breathe. It's all okay. It's all right. So move that out of the way for a moment. Let's move this out of the way. And here you can see again the changes in the color. Okay, there are no jogs, but you can distinctly see your blocks of color and count, and each one is 10 rounds of a specific color. Now, what do you do when you're working with something that's a little bit more subtle, like this, where it's a little bit harder to see? Now, if I just kind of leave that there for a minute, you can see this is yellow, this is sort of greenish in here, then you've got a grayish block in here, blue, and the purple and the pink are much more distinct. So these three are a little easier to see. But even over here, because it's sort of a speckled, sort of faded look, it's almost indistinguishable where these two colors, the yellow and the pink, are, where that line is. Now, yes, you can just find a pink stitch and start counting from there, or you can find a purple stitch and count up. That's fine. But for something down here that's a little bit more subtle, what do you do? So I just want to show you. Now I have this little stitch marker here, my little teacup, and I just love this. This little marker, isn't this beautiful, you guys? Look at how ornate and beautiful this is. This is by Maria, who is Woolen Forest on Instagram. You know what? Let me just grab her thing here because I know someone's going to ask me. Yeah, she is Woolen Forest on Instagram, but her Etsy shop is called Forest Charm. So that's where I got this little marker from. Now, you might want to take your marker, okay? Right here, I'm going to bring this up a little bit closer. So I have now completed my 5 rounds. Now in this sock, I'm doing 5 rounds of color as opposed to the other sock that had 10 rounds. So what I want to do here is, that's where I ended with the pink. So now here's 1, 2, 3, 4. And this round of stitches still sitting on the needle, that's going to be the 5th round in the yellow. So I am now ready to weave in my end. Let's see that one more time now. I want you to see it when the colors are much closer together. It's not so distinguishable between the colors. Okay, so let's do this really quick. We're doing the same thing we've been doing. I'm going to put that under there. Here is my green color. Uh-oh, I've got 2 different ones. Do I have 2 different ones? Yep, here's the green. Let's put that one away. Okay, so here is my green, and I'm going to grab the end. Whoops. You know what? Let's just use this one. Okay, I have the green attached to the other ball, so I'm going to go ahead and use this. I just want to show you what to do here. Okay, so I'm going to slide my loop on. Same way we've been doing it before. I'm going to let my tail, make sure I've got enough of a tail to leave there, and I'm going to start weaving it in. Okay, and I'm going to go under, and then I'm going to then go over. Same thing we've been doing all along. And there you go, guys. Now, there you go. There are my 5 rounds of the yellow color. Here is my new color, and then I want to show you what it looks like when you come back around. So let's just do this together in real time. And what you can do for yourself, what will really help, is if you do take the progress keeper here and hook the progress keeper on. Let's see if I can do this through the camera. There you go. Hook the progress keeper on to the stitch. Now I'm going to drop the tail here because I don't need that anymore. Okay, let's tuck that in, and I'm just going to continue knitting across with the new color. Okay, and I know exactly where I am now because that's telling me where the row ended, or where that block of yellow ended, and I'm just going to come around to the other side. And I am going to show you, in this case, how to do that jogless jog when you've got the colors a little bit closer. I will demonstrate that again later when you've got a much more distinction rather between the colors. So let's go across here in real time. All right, I'm here at the end. I'm going to turn, slide my needle in place. Okay, my tail is right here waiting for me to weave in, and I'm going to weave across. All right, almost there, guys. Let's flip my needle under to avoid my ladders. Okay, and keep going across. There we go. Okay, I hope you guys are finding this helpful. If you have any questions, as always, please leave them in the description box down below. I would be more than happy to help you. That is why I am here. Okay, now I'm ready to weave in. I've got what, 2, 4, 6, 7. Let's just do one more. Okay, so I've got 6 stitches here. Once again, I'm going to bring the tail between the needles. I'm going to slide my finger into place. I am going to do this just a little quicker this time. Okay, so I'm going over and then under. And you see there's a pretty, oops, I didn't want that much of a loop. Okay, yep. So I'm going to go over, and then that was under, this was over, and I'm going to keep going. Okay, so now that is all woven in. Again, I want you to see that gentle tug to snug everything up. I'm going to find the other side. Okay, and everything is done there and ready to go. Now, here's the jog in a light colored yarn. This is what the jogless jog looks like. Now, what you're basically doing is taking this yellow stitch below, and I'm going to slide that up on the needle, just like that, and I'm going to knit into these 2 stitches together. And what that does is it brings the yellow up, so that as you continue going and coming around, here we go, 1 second. There we go. So now what it does actually is it lines up, not the yellow, it lines up the blue. Can you guys see that? You're not going to see it until I come around again. So I'm going to finish this round. I will come around and show you one more time. And yeah, I think then you'll be able to see it a little bit better. So hang on. Okay, I have completed that first round. And I want you to see now that once what it does here, okay, even though I'm pulling that yellow stitch, it looks as if the yellow stitch is pulling up. What happens is it actually lines up the first stitch on the second round with the last stitch of the second round. Does that make sense? So when you see here, this stitch is going to line up then with the row below. So let me say that again. By pulling up the stitch below, okay, I am lining up the 2 yellow stitches from the previous round of color, and now I've added the green or the blue, it doesn't really matter. And again, that pulling up lines up the previous round with the new round. Does that make sense to everybody? So everything here, so these 2 stitches in here, let me use the needle because that's a little easier than my finger. These 2 stitches have now been pulled up to line up together, and these 2 stitches, let me move this out a little bit more. These 2 stitches here, the one I just finished and the one I'm about to do, these 2 stitches get lined up. And I really wanted you to see that in something that's a little more challenging to see. I will show you this again with distinctly different yarns, but I did want you to see what it looks like when the yarns are a little closer together, because it depends on what your mini sets look like and what minis you're using. Okay, sometimes it may not even matter to you. You may say, all right, I just need to know how to weave in the ends. I don't care about the jogging and having things line up, but I just wanted you to see that was one of the things I really wanted to include in this tutorial. So there you go, guys. Next up is going to be the heel, changing colors in the heel, and I will have that ready for you shortly. But this is the video for today, you guys. I hope that you have found this helpful, and I will see you in just 1 second. So there you have it, you guys. We just covered a lot of information. I was repetitive at times because I think the repetition helps everybody understand what they're seeing. I think it helps to see it over and over again in different colors. So I hope that you did find that helpful. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust my camera real quick. Okay, there we go. I hope that you found that helpful. So as I said right before the actual demo portion, I think that's enough information for this one class. This video would be really, really long, like 2+ hours long. And I think it's just too much for you to sort through to find the bits and pieces that you want. So the next changing color, this is going to be changing color 1, cuffs and heels. The next one is going to be changing color, cuffs and counting rounds. The next one is going to be heels. And in that one, we will cover the heel flap and gusset and the short row, how to change those colors. And then after that, we'll just work on the toe. And I will also demonstrate again the jog, the jogless jog in a much more distinct, 2 more distinct colors. That way you can see it a little bit clearer. But I did want you to see it in a lighter yarn. And then again, I will show it to you in much darker yarn, much more distinguished, or highly contrasting. That's what I want to say. 2 yarns with more of a contrast. I hope you guys have found this very helpful. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I will see you again very, very soon. Trust me, there's not going to be a long wait. I will see you very, very soon for the next part of this tutorial. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. I will see you all again soon. Bye-bye.